Cool. And we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to, I guess, episode 15 of, I still don't know what I want to call it, but sharing developer stories. But today we don't actually have a software developer. We have someone more interesting than that. So, hey, Serena, do you want to give us a little intro?
Hey guys, all a few of you out there. I can't actually see the comments, but hey everybody, my name is Serena. I used to work as like a middle office banker for like 2.5 years, and then I had some existential crisis, ran some side hustles, and realized, hey, I actually need to like move to the Silicon Valley and move to the tech scene because people, I guess, put up a better fight here, running organizations and advancing their careers. So I'm pretty passionate about like advancing your career. I'd like to think that I think quite deeply about the career ladder or like just wealth distribution in different like classes in terms of like how do we advance our career and like how does that place us in different like I don't know socioeconomic class. And I then spent maybe 2.5 years working in tech and recently quit my job to explore newer projects. So nice to meet y'all here.
Nice to meet you. We have a pretty jam-packed audience of 3, myself included.
Hi.
So let's have fun with this one. So I think I kind of looked you up on LinkedIn a little bit, and you grew up in the East Coast. Is that right? Or you went to school in the East Coast?
I was actually born and raised in China. And then my parents brought me over and I grew up in the Midwest.
Okay,
So
got
it. That was a whole trip. I spent almost a decade in the Midwest. So that was quite interesting. And then I worked. My first job out of college was on the East Coast.
Was in the East Coast. I see. And then I think you. So where did you go? You go into Indiana or?
Yeah.
Okay,
I grew up in Indiana.
And then, oh wow, that's such a random place to live. But Indiana, and then did you? I think I saw that you went to Penn as well. Is that true or no?
So I got like I would like to call it a fake degree at UPenn just because I never finished that degree.
I see.
But yeah, I can go more into that if people are interested. It's like an executive MBA that was sponsored by the company that I worked for at the time.
I see. So when you were doing like that MBA program and stuff, like what made you want to go to the West Coast and specifically go into tech and all of that stuff? Because I can't see how. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people have discussions about it, like what do you want to do next after you finish? And some people get into banking, some people get into like starting their own business. Like what was your attraction to tech?
Yeah, of course. So back to your MBA question. It was actually that was already like after I decided to leave banking. I had already told my manager and my manager's manager at the time, and I'm like, hey, why? Like, I don't think I'm like cut out for the banking world. There's a lot of other stuff that I want to work on and learn, and I feel like banking is not really for me, and I'm ready to leave. And they're like, wait, there's a project that you have to finish in 6 months. Like, well, how about you stay and we'll sponsor your MBA? Like, we'll help you get into school. We'll help you, like, we'll write you a good recommendation letter. All you have to do is like take the exam and get in, and then like we'll sponsor it. So that's when I said, okay, I will stay for a few more months just to like finish off this project, but then at the same time, like fly to UPenn, I guess, from time to time to like do that degree. Right. I didn't actually end up finishing it because like midway, I realized I'm not actually learning a lot from the MBA degree. Especially like I got to meet a lot of really cool people and a lot of people who are like hustlers who are very, very knowledgeable in their like domain expertise. But the stuff that I had wanted to learn was very different from like an MBA program. I'd rather just like learn by doing. So I still made the decision to just move to the West Coast and accepted a new job here. So now I'm in the Silicon Valley.
Right. So what made you want to go to the West Coast though, of all like places? Did you know you wanted to do tech?
Yes. At that time, I had already decided I want to go into tech space. But obviously, like I romanticized, I idealized the tech world a bit too much before I moved here. I'm like, oh, these are all of the cool people who are solving social problems and building companies. That's like, yeah, it's just like very cool to me at the time, being an outsider. And there's always this like aura around the world or the circle you want to get into. And I think I definitely like romanticized it, and in a good way, I guess, because that gave me a lot of motivation. What I wanted to get out of the tech world is mainly like the, I don't know, entrepreneurial spirit, the founder spirit, as you run a company without even knowing what the heck you're doing. Especially there's a lot of kids who dropped out of school who don't have a lot of like actual, let's say, real life experience running companies. You still end up okay. Like after a few years, you fail, you do it again, you fail, you do it again. And it seems pretty fun, right? You watch like Justin Khan run his stuff and you watch like all these people doing their startups. It's just a bunch of dumb kids trying out really creative ideas, and somehow some of them end up succeeding. So I really want that spirit. And that's the one thing that I was looking for when I moved to the Bay Area.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of my audience or even I knew, because when I grew up, I think my mentality was just work at a big company, stay there for like potentially 20 to 40 years, and then just retire, right? But once I started getting exposed to like startups, it really did like open my eyes to just life of not just software development, but just this idea of people raising money to continue their company and all of that stuff. So I learned so much working at a startup outside of just like coding. But like, what did you already have an idea of what life at Silicon Valley was going to be like, and like this whole entrepreneurial aspect of it? Or was it just kind of like, oh, let's just see what happens?
Absolutely not. So it was really funny. Like I actually interviewed for a whole year while I was working for the bank, and I had different goals. I'm like, oh, maybe I should try this out. Maybe I should try that out. But I didn't, at the time, I had no freaking clue about like, what are the roles in the tech world? Like, okay, I know there's engineers, and then there's a bunch of roles like evolving around engineering teams and tangential to engineering teams. Like, how do I go be someone who's like actually influential in an organization? So I was quite idealistic, and I was looking for a job in the tech world because I'm like, I want to be a manager. Like I want to manage technical people. And yeah, after like probably 30 rounds of interviews, I'm like, okay, this is like a slap in the face kind of reality. Like I am definitely not like at that level yet to manage hardcore technical people, because like myself, I'm not technical enough to even understand what's happening, right? So then I changed my goal, and I was like, okay, I just need a job in tech working for a person that I would want to work for in the next, let's say, 5 years, or like I can grow under like this person's mentorship. And then I changed my objective, I think midpoint, and that gave me clarity to a lot of stuff that I was looking for. And then I eventually accepted a job that gave me that.
And what kind of role was it?
It was first it was special projects in product development, and then I worked like half as a product manager, half as a project manager, because it was a startup. And then later on, the organization developed from like 50 people to like 350 people, and I moved to product marketing. So I did a lot more product marketing from there. But it wasn't long before that, like I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to like quit again and decide what I want to do next.
That's I mean, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I quit my job too as well, just to figure out life. But I think majority of my audience, and even myself included, we think of like getting into tech only in some ways, like we're so single-minded, saying like we have to be software developers to get into tech. But there's just so many other avenues like PM roles, maybe even customer success and things like that. What do you think are some qualifications to be a PM? Like people ask me this question. I have no idea. It's like, oh, you need experience being a PM.
Yeah. I don't know if I like have enough credential to like tell people what do you need to have to become a PM. But what I've seen, at least amongst like my friends, my product manager friends, I see like there's a quality like you need to have like a certain level of technicality, right? You need to understand what your engineers are working on. But on top of that, I think you almost kind of have to be a salesperson internally, because like your engineers, your designers, like all these people that you work with, they don't report to you. But you like you have to make them do shit, and you have to like make sure things are being done at a certain timeline, and that's really annoying. Like that is honestly very, very annoying to people who are actually technical and to people who need to be in their flow zone to get things done.
Right.
And I think it takes just like a certain type of like personality or charisma for you to be that product manager who's able to like manage relationships with people you work with, tell them to do stuff, but then also help them understand, hey, you doing this boring thing at times towards this timeline is actually super valuable to the organization. And then as a product manager, you have to talk to like your I guess your managers or like executive teams and let them know that, hey, this individual contributor who's like always quiet at the office is actually contributing a lot of significant value to the company. And I feel like this is just like a bunch of like communication, a bunch of like understanding the larger picture, and also like just relentlessly talk about that to people, like shill on your project, be the capitalist of your project or your product. So it's a lot of that.
That's true. That's true. What do you think are some positive things that you've had experiences with developers with, and what are some negative experiences you've had developers with?
Oh God. Okay.
I'm sure there's
let's start with, I think negative stuff is more just like it crushes your ego. If you, especially if you're a first-time product manager or project manager, or like some companies, larger companies call you like a program manager. If you're a first-time PM, it definitely crushes your ego because you probably come from some sort of, I don't know, management consulting, investment banking, or management role, right? And you shifted your role to this PM role, and you're used to managing people. You're used to like the bureaucracy. You're used to like playing the office politics. You're used to all of that. But in the tech world, it doesn't work that way. Like you can't just tell people what to do, because in the tech world, people are legit, like every single person is so smart, and you can't just tell them to do things. There's a lot of ego in the space. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, especially like engineers. There's a lot of ego in the space, and I think it's maybe rightfully so, because people worked really hard to become engineers, and people are very technical. They're literally building things from zero, from scratch. And you're this person who's not building, you're not getting your hands dirty most of the time. You're just in meetings every day, but then there are some meetings that you can't be transparent about. So then people don't really know what you're actually working on, but you have to tell people to do stuff. So a lot of the times, if you ask people, hey, why are you not getting this done? Or, hey, like, can you do this? And people say no to you. That's a ego crush. And that's something that you just have to be very comfortable with. So that's maybe like the uglier part of the PM world, even though I feel like most PMs are quite used to it. Like, I don't know, like we've developed quite thick skins in the space, like in order to get shit done. So I don't mind it. I know that a first time doing it though, like that's definitely like a reality shift that you kind of have to like take some time to adjust to.
Yeah. What are some positive things that maybe developers do that make your life a little bit easier? Maybe I would think that most of my audience that want to be developers and be contributing to a team wants to be helpful, but if maybe they're not doing it the right way, right?
Yeah, of course. Like maybe this is a stereotype, or maybe this is just a pattern that I'm seeing, but a lot of developers, especially like backend developers, are quite introverted. Would you say that? Like that's, I don't know, like at least
I mean, I can
half
see that
of the population.
Half,
okay. Yeah. So for the more introverted developers, or people who are more willing to focus on like their individual work, instead of like portraying a business value or talking about like how you're contributing to the project, or how you're contributing to like a very specific feature that like not a lot of people use, it's very difficult for the engineer to see the business value or to like speak to that in front of leadership. And a lot of times I feel like engineers lose that connection to the rest of the team because of this. One of the most fulfilling part of my past job is that I get to like talk about it with leadership. So I'm like, hey, like person A and person B are actually building this, and this thing is like extremely helpful in like closing our next biggest client. So you guys like go say thank you to them, like go tell them that they're doing a good job. And they did that. And I think that was tremendously helpful. Like I didn't expect it in the beginning, but like the developers would come to me and be like, hey, thanks for like, I don't know, put in a good word for me. And I'm like, no, I didn't even specifically like mindfully put in a good word for you. I literally just described what you did, but like in their language. So that was quite fulfilling for me, and probably for the developer. And that like helped us bond.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, even myself, I think there was a period in my time where I really let my code speak for itself and nothing more. So I always felt that I could just kind of be not very friendly. And like as long as I just produce really well, then that's all that really going to matter. But eventually, if you stay at a company long enough, then people are gonna not want to
Mm.
talk to you, and it's just gonna make things very uncomfortable even as a developer. So it can only go so far. I think that's why so many developers, they frequently move to different companies and they never really see it
I
through.
see.
That's my theory, is that either they want to get paid more, which is probably true, but secondly, like, no one can stand them at a certain point, like even if they are good. So I think that's just kind of the one of the things I've learned as I've grown as a developer, is to just kind of be more like humble and show more humility, because it's so easy to just, yeah, if you're a really good developer, it's so easy to just kind of have it your way. And I know it makes PM's lives more difficult. It can make the team more difficult. And yeah, I don't know.
Very
It's really helped me out a
cool.
lot. Yeah.
Wait, a follow-up question for you then is that like I've always been curious, like how much would you suggest developers to like really just let your code speak for you versus like how much energy would you dedicate into like actually talking to people and communicate with just like plain English language and tell people what you're working on?
Well, that was the hard part too. Was I think when I think I had a really bad first experience in my professional software
Mm.
development, where I got paired with a really really smart developer, and he was just excellent at what he did, but he was kind of a dick like all the time.
Hmm.
And he every time we paired, he would just be like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" And like every time I put in a code review, he would just destroy my PR and then just like basically rewrite the code.
Oh.
And then
Is that wait, does that happen often to developers? Or to
what do you
like I
mean?
guess like new rookie developers? Like does that happen if you get paired with a very smart, more senior developer, like your code just gets trashed?
I don't know. I really don't know. And
Hmm.
like, to be weird, like weirdly honestly, in some ways I didn't realize how much I was learning, but in like my ego, my attitude and my just motivation was so low, because I just felt like I wasn't a good developer. But after I
Hmm.
left that company and joined a different company, I realized I learned so much. I just didn't realize it, because my whole confidence in software development was so trashed. And I kind of took that knowledge of learning how to code, as well as like, oh wow, like this guy was also succeeding at our previous company because he was a dick, but at the same time very smart. So I thought like, oh, okay, as long as you're good
Hmm.
at coding, you could kind of behave any way you want, and like just you could just say like, oh, I know I'm right, because you know those developers that always think they're right, and no matter what you say, you're like,
Yeah.
nah, just like
Oh
leave me alone.
yes.
I'm right, right? So I kind of did that in the beginning of my the previous company, and then it worked. It worked really well. Like I was getting like really good raises and all of that, but it just comes to a certain point where people are just like, okay, this guy's just really hard to talk to, or every time they're going to talk to Alex, it's going to be one of those like, I'm ready to like go into battle basically to try to get this developer to work on a feature or whatever, right? Like I would like
That's so
complain to
funny.
the PM like, oh, you didn't inspect this out correctly, or like there's no designs, like why do you expect me to start this project? Like these were all valid reasons, but at the same time there could have been a better way to have like a team conversation about it, right? So that's kind of when I
Hmm.
realized, I was like, I need to step back a little bit and just sometimes you got to learn how to cushion the blow. And maybe that's what I noticed with more mature developers. I'm not saying like skilled developers, but people that have just been in the industry for a while. A lot of them don't have that many egos. They just kind of they got other stuff dealing with their own lives, whether they have kids or other things. Like they don't really care about the coding part. But this is kind of what I want to talk to you about, maybe even like the Silicon Valley part, because I know within
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, there's like generally you have a lot of younger developers like maybe coming out of college and like getting paid like six-figure plus salaries. So do you think sometimes like they don't have the like, I don't want to say the aptitude, but they don't like have the awareness to be to think about these office politics of like having a better discussion versus just being right? And like, how do you deal with those kind of conflicts?
I see. Just hanging out with people who work for like, I don't know, FANG companies or like engineers who work in the tech space in the Silicon Valley. I feel like I see two types of people. One is the group of people who are just like quite chill about their work. Like you work very hard, like you still work hard and you get your work done at the end of the day. You try to be the person who's like easier to hang out with at work. So then you try to
Right.
make your counterparts work easier. You try to like do all of that. And the thing is, usually this group of people they have side hustles.
Ah,
So So it's like, okay, I'm going to do whatever that will make my job and my colleagues' job easy, just so that one, I have a good reputation at work, and two, like we're actually making meaningful progress from day to day at work. But then I get to save my mental energy, or like, I don't know, more problem solving, creative problem solving mental energy to like my other projects that's either like fulfilling, I don't know, more of my fat fire more about fat stuff, or like fulfilling some sort of like self-actualization or running organizations. So I see this type of engineers in the Silicon Valley a lot, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I actually very much admire them for like being able to handle different types of work and understanding your role in different types of like work and entities. So I very much admire that. And then there's another group of engineers who are like, okay, I will try to get to the highest developer level possible in the shortest path, like in the fastest ways. And I'm going to be a little bit more cutthroat. I will like guard my time and guard my relationships with people just to make sure like I get a raise, or like I jump ship every, I don't know, 2-3 years to get there. And the ultimate goal is, you know, to get paid, I don't know, more than $500,000 every year, and then you can just chill. Right. Yeah. So there's the two group of people that I see. But I think both are like really, really good career tracks. I think both groups ultimately get to make like very, very fat checks and fulfill whatever they're looking for in life. So it's just interesting to observe how they're approaching it.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that, and I don't really know where we're going to go with this conversation, but one of the kind of,
it's so
good. One of the like hesitation about for me to ever move to like places like Silicon Valley was just this ultra competitiveness in terms of software development, because I like coding, but in some regards, I don't want to be judged based on like your skill level. You know, in some weird ways, you're kind of in this room. It's like, how much do you know? And then like, how much do you know? And then and maybe in your like group of conversations, like I know you were really into like you have a good awareness of like VCs and who do you know and like how much did you raise and all of these like kind of people are just like one-upping each other. I'm sure New York is the same way in some different like investment banking world, but one thing I really liked about New York was this just kind of this like balance of people doing different things. But in Silicon Valley it just seems so heavy on tech that if you're not in tech, people kind of just look at you differently in some regards.
No, that's true. That's true. I definitely feel that sentiment. Like I'm not one of the more like technical people in the Silicon Valley, and I definitely feel that in the room. But I think it's just funny. I think I used to joke that all the cutthroat investment bankers in New York are now like in the tech world because they want to be product managers. Like it's ultimately like the same career path, right? It's essentially like people who would have been, I don't know, investment bankers or like managing directors 20 years ago are now just basically operating in the tech world because there's a lot of TMT deals going on. There's a lot of like, you can go the product manager route. You can, I don't know, create your own company. You can be a VC or VC scout. And it's essentially like the same type of people, like the type A chasing after like career advancements, people operating in the field now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm so happy to talk to you about this stuff. And I want the audience to hear this because I think sometimes people are so focused on just like software development. But after working at a startup for as long as I have, like I worked at a single startup for almost over 4 years. And not only did I learn just how to contribute from a dev perspective, but I got to see a company go from like Series A to Series B to Series B to Series C, and like just dealing with all those like politics of trying to raise money and just getting that feedback from like your CEO was kind of crazy to hear. And I think sometimes people don't realize like what they get themselves into when they join a startup. Like they just like, for me at least, when I signed my like papers, like I didn't know what I was signing when they're like, oh, do you want equity in the company? I'm like, sure, whatever the hell that means. Like, does it actually mean anything? Or like all of these like conversations that I should have had that I wish I knew about, but no one actually teaches you these things until you experience it firsthand. And like for you is like, for you when you're able to go to Silicon Valley, like how did you get that kind of information? Is that just what people normally talk about, or is that just like
I mean, like at dinner tables, at like, I don't know, when you go hiking with people, you cross, literally if you go hiking with people and you cross the road with like another group of people, you guys would essentially be talking about the same shit. Like, like conversation wise, you will be like, oh, our conversation is actually synced, even though like we don't know any of like the other people in the group.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My friend
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, my friend was talking about how like one of his friends was really stressing out because like he really wanted to be 30 under 30, and I was like, man, what kind of conversations are people having in the Silicon Valley that I'm not fully aware about? But I just, if anything, this conversation that we're having is just confirming all of my questions and theories.
No. I'm sure there's like other sides. Maybe I just belong to this group. Like maybe I'm projecting because like obviously I went through like the banking route. Obviously I didn't get to investment banking, but like I definitely was a wannabe, right? And then now I'm like a techie wannabe. So I definitely belong to that group of people who are just like, I don't know, idealizing whatever is happening here amongst all the, I don't know, like successful people, whatever success means, and wanting to be like part of that group and get some, I don't know, cloud inspiration. What do you call it?
True.
Yeah.
Hey, so
but I do see people, I was going to say, I do see people like who are running companies that are quite chill. So perhaps they have experiences and they're like, let's say the third time, fourth time founders. And they're like, oh, I've done all of this before. Like, I just want my life to be chill. And I know how to work my resources. I know how to work technology. I know how to work capital. So then like it comes a little bit easier for them. You see them like working a pretty like regular schmegular schedule. So there's that too. But definitely takes like the first decade of grinding for you to get there.
That's true. Seems like you have a lot of fans already. Someone's calling you out for your blue
Jonathan.
shirt.
Hi.
And then your sincerity. It looks like you're very honest with your storytelling.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not used to the blue shirt in a non-mirrored form. How many subscribers are
Nikki?
But someone
yeah, like usually Coffee, hi. Oh my goodness. Okay. I didn't know you guys are all here.
Most of your audience is in here. Thank goodness, because either there was just going to be like 3 or 4 people watching.
That's funny. Sometimes I stream on TikTok and I think it's mirrored, so no one could actually read my shirt. And now, like with your tool, what is this called? Web developer? No.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about
your
StreamYard?
Yeah, your StreamYard. Yeah. Like it's actually like mirrored correctly, so people can actually read my t-shirt now. So
dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I was gonna ask you something, but I forgot.
No, I'm curious though. I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, we never really talked about this, so I'm just like treating this podcast kind of just like us chatting and chilling with a bunch of friends who kind of know us, I guess, from the internet. What made you want to go into like a more technical role versus, I don't know, like what were you doing before, and why are you like basically doubling down on like the developer track?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just my personality. Like, as much as I love like talking to people, I only have so much energy to do it. And I realized I just need my own like personal space. And that's like, I think that's like my personal space to do like software development, or just like really be introverted and just be away from everything and just start coding. And I mean, I actually have an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree. So not software, but I did that back in college. And then I worked in the semiconductor industry before, hated it. But then I forgot everything I learned. So I went to a coding bootcamp to just kind of restart and kind of start from the bottom and then go back up. And then, I mean, there's still part of me that thinks about being a manager or like a product PM and all that stuff. But then I see what a PM does, and it's like, sometimes it's really exhausting. I'm like so impressed by how much talking and meetings that they have to go to. And then like to your point, like connecting the dots and making sure everyone is fully aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, all of that stuff. And by the end of the day, I would feel so exhausted. And if I was to have like a YouTube channel or a side hustle, that like talking more would be the last thing I would want to do. And the reason why this balances out so nicely is like my channel, as much as I talk about software development, I don't actually code on my channel. And I do that intentionally because like the last thing I want to do is code after I code. So I think it's just trying to find that right balance between like just code. Like I like solving things too. So I think that's why I prefer being more in like a technical role. And then it's weird, like just giving one-on-ones. Maybe I'm like a little too honest, and I want everyone to do like so well to the point that like my bosses might hate me for trying to like, oh, we can't give away that much money or something like that. And then like I hate to be like a disappointer or bad news. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Gotcha. No, I definitely feel that. And I think that's why a lot of people choose to be developers, is that like you get to solve problems kind of, at least like with some agency, as in like on your own terms, on sort of your timeline-ish,
Mhm.
and you get to protect your time and energy when you like don't want to like constantly chat with people. That's like
Yeah.
I think one of the things like a lot of more technical people or people with like CS degrees would consider when they first go into their career is like, do I try to become an engineer or do I try to become a PM? Which is like, I don't know, like the I don't know, like the consideration between the two is always like something that like a lot of undergrads with CS degrees have to think through.
Yeah.
And I don't have good answers for that because I know Jonathan in the chat. I think
Mhm.
Jonathan graduated from Berkeley like with a CS degree, but he chose to be a PM. So I
Yeah, I
just thought
mean,
that was
to
quite
each their
interesting
own, and like
how
maybe
people
I'll
make their
I'll
decisions.
change it one day, but or change
Mm-hmm.
my opinion one day, because like sometimes I could even see myself like comparing myself to someone that just graduated from college that is constantly coding all the time, and then it's just like it's hard to keep up sometimes because it's like I don't want to code like 12, 14 hours a day, you know? And then
Mm-hmm.
there's something about being potentially like a manager or someone that's just more of like a people person as you get older and more experienced. Sometimes you find yourself even in a higher technical role doing more talking than and explaining than actual coding,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think
Yeah.
there eventually will be a time where I probably have to make that decision. But for now, I'm still enjoying like solving things. And at least in the developer world, there's this thing called like DevRel, developer relations,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be something that I might consider because it is more related to like content creation, and maybe I'll like create a TikTok then, you know, so I could just like expand my social circle. But no, yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge I think about every day, and like I even joke around saying that like a PM is tech. I say this amongst my friends. I say PM is the most useless necessary position ever because when you first start a company, you don't really need a PM, but as your team gets bigger and bigger, it's like you need a PM because
Mm-hmm.
they need to kind of steer the ship in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I say it's the
It's a
most useless necessary.
very particular personality you're looking for in like good
It
PMs.
is. And like sometimes
It's
I
just
don't
like
even
so
know.
niche.
Yeah, and I don't even know how to explain how you become one because it's like, what do you need to know? Like, they're not like hard skills in some regards. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
But yeah, like with a lot of large companies, like when you meet a PM who's had like, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years experience,
Yeah.
and you ask them how they got the job, and they're like, oh, I sold my last company to like, I don't know, Google. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, is that a path that's like conventional? Is that a path that's like replicable? So a lot of people don't know. So I think
Yeah.
that's why there's a lot of organizations popping up though, like product school, or like there's a bunch of like organizations or like companies popping up training people to actually make PM like a career path. So maybe that's like
Right.
catching up to the developer world.
Maybe, and I think
Yeah,
Don was
we'll
kind of
see.
saying it the same way. Like the
Mm.
software engineering does have a straightforward path, although I know just like so many people that want to switch into being a PM, and they're like, "Oh, I've
Mhm.
had experience doing this, or I've experience doing that." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds pretty relatable. I think you could do it," but it's just I think I've never been in one of those PM interviews, so I really don't know what kind of questions are you asking. Like, do you just say like, do you know Agile? Like, it's like yes. Like, okay, cool, you're hired. Like, is that how it works? I have
Rude.
no idea.
We know more than
But
agile.
yeah, do you know? Yes, I know. Waterfall. Is that another one? Yeah,
Ah, okay.
but no, I mean,
No, we're not going
so
backwards.
we're
We're
not
not
going
going there.
backwards. True that. I had a quick question about like I know on my thumbnail I put like burnout, mental health, like career
Mhm.
ladder, and all of those things. And at least in working in, I mean, it might not even just be like isolated to Silicon Valley, but do you see like a lot of burnout amongst like developers, teams? And if you do see that, is it more generally in like smaller companies or is it like larger companies?
I
Oh,
see.
did I
Give
lose
me
you?
1 second. Let me charge my laptop.
Oh, no worries.
Are we back? We're back.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. When it comes to burnouts, I think people experience burnouts in different ways. In larger companies, there's typically this type of personality, right? Majority of the company are people who want stability, people who want to make sure they have a stable job, they have insurance, they can be guaranteed that they're being paid to provide for their families or like for themselves. So there's this personality out there, and usually when people experience burnout, it's when they know they're about to get fired. or like there's like this really high intensity, high stress situation that just like drags on when you don't really know what the result is. This is my personal experience. Like I talk to my friends, and usually when they experience burnouts is when they know that there's a career change. Either you're about to get fired, or you really, really want to advance up and you're just like not getting there. You work so hard, you do all these extra things, you burn midnight oils, and you talk to a bunch of people, you network, you build your own entity like outside of work just so you can build reputation in the field. You do all these things, but then like there's just not enough headcounts. Like if there's not enough headcounts, you don't get there. And that's when burnout shows in larger companies, I think. So it's like when you try to achieve something, but you don't get there. So sometimes I question actually, like, are you really burnt out, or are you just not hitting your goals, like the arbitrary milestones that you set for yourself?
Right.
That's what I see amongst like larger companies, especially like there's like a bunch of office politics involved, and you have to kind of like see lay of the land, talk to people, understand like what everybody's interest is. It's quite like draining.
Yeah.
And then comes like smaller company, like startup burnouts, and that's really different. Startups are just like, they are meant to operate in a highly intense way, just because like that's how venture works, right? Venture capital gives you money. It squeezes, like it's supposed to squeeze let's say a 10-year timeline to like a 1-year timeline. So what a regular schmegler company with revenue, like what their growth would look like, you would want that to happen within a year for a smaller company. So then people are obviously like required to do more work, and with a lot of startups. Yeah, that's why you get equity, right? That's why you get equity. That's why you get to advance really fast in terms of like titles and stuff. Every time you get around, you get like, I don't know, some sort of salary bump. So that kind of a burnout usually happens when you don't I guess make the next milestone. For example, you just don't get to raise enough money for your next round, even though you're like an IC in the company and you're like participating in like pitch decks and you're building demos for investors. Like you just don't get there. So again, it's like not being able to achieve some sort of like arbitrary milestone that you set for yourself or the company has set for you, or it's literally just like constantly working without rest. Like humans, perhaps most humans are not designed to operate in that way. Like we are designed to like sleep, even though like, I don't know. I think that's quite dumb that like humans, it's the 21st century and we still need like 8 hours of sleep to like power through the next day.
It's worse.
But that's also that. There's also that. Like with larger companies, you don't really see that. But with like startups, it's very easy for you to like work for customer success or like act as a customer success person, even though you're an engineer or like a product person. And you just like don't ever get enough rest because there's this one thing that's constantly on your mind. And if you don't do this thing today, your company might die tomorrow. So there's that.
Yeah, I think it's a little mix of smaller companies are also a little bit disorganized and they just don't know how to, they don't have any structure, right? So just like how as developers, we joke that everyone creates like applications, but no one creates like a README. So like the README could just make life so much easier if you just know what you need to do. But it's like there's no playbook essentially. And then everyone's just kind of doing so ad hoc. And at least at my like startups, what really frustrated me from then is just like some people were just like failing upward. Like they're just able to get into the ears of the higher ups, even though they're not doing very well. And then it's just kind of like this finagling of like, to your point, like even you get burnout because you think you're contributing, you want to get to the top, but somehow like even without proper training, somehow they're just getting these new roles and you just like it just perplexes me sometimes to see someone is suddenly becoming like a staff engineer with like 1 year of experience or something. And it's the startups could just make up anything they want, right? I don't know. It's just there's a lot of other nuances with it and a lot of late hours, but I think it just revolves around lack of, maybe you could call it lack of leadership, but maybe just lack of organization too. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think there's always this like misconception about you do your job and that's what will get you the next raise or next promotion. It's absolutely not that. Like if you do your job, that just means you're a very good employee in this like very specific position versus like you have to do a lot more. And you as like, especially with a startup, you can't really figure out what other stuff you need to do to get there because there's nobody who has enough time to guide you or who has enough like energy to even talk to you about it. So there's also that versus like large corporations, at least there's a ladder. Some sort of process in like the in going up. But like with startups, it's just like everybody's doing everybody's stuff. Like people have silly titles, and a lot of people, like, I don't know, companies hire executives get fired, and then you're like, oh, so whose initiative do I go after? So it's a lot of like guessing game in a startup.
Yeah, and like I think that really does affect your mental health, because even as an employee, like, as much as you get equity, you're not getting anything compared to the full pie, right? And you're expected to work exorbitant amounts of hours, and they're like, oh, like, don't worry, your equity will make up for it. But there's no real guarantee that your equity will have any value either. So like your company could go under right away. So I guess that's kind of what the stress is associated with. But do you feel that at least even in Silicon Valley, like startups generally pay less than the bigger companies?
Yeah, when it comes to base comp, startups definitely pay less than like FANG companies.
Sure.
But that's one of the FANG companies' like value prop, right? You are completely capable of becoming a founder or like developing your own tools like an app store and sell it for like a couple mil a year. But you don't do that. You come for work for us because we guarantee you a sense of security. We guarantee you enough pay and like really bougie like packages coming with it. So yeah, with startups, it's just like, okay, there's a chance if you're willing to take higher risks, if you're willing to just be okay with not making cash, but you make like social capital if you work with startups, because you get to meet, like, sometimes if you perform well, you get to meet investors, right?
Yeah.
Or if you get to meet like higher executives who eventually will, I don't know, do something else and maybe take you to their like larger venture. So there's that opportunity there. So yeah, I think startups in general, especially like startups before Series D, don't pay as well as FANG companies. And then I think you see a difference between like startups that are Series D or like to a unicorn. That level of company, they try to match what FANG companies are paying people. And oftentimes, since people know that there's a certain amount of, I guess, like certainty to the equity package now, more people are willing to work for Series D and beyond, like unicorn startups, rather than like FANG companies.
I see that actually that makes sense, because when I joined my startup, it was like Series A, and it just felt like we're just like walking on mud sometimes to just keep going to the next round, and then it's just like 3-4 years later, it just takes a long time, especially if you're maybe trying to do it right in some regards from a financial perspective. But I do want to talk about that social capital part yet. But there's one question that Don had asked.
Hey, Don.
If you guys get a chance to answer this, I'd be curious what advice Serena would have for a software engineer that would want to transition into becoming a PM.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Don, for the question. Let me think. From a software engineer to a PM, since I wasn't a developer, I don't think I have a path for you to replicate right now. But I do think what people are looking for in PMs is two parts, right? One is the technicality. And then two is communication skills, or like, I don't know, people skills, or being able to leverage your resources. So you already have the more difficult part. Like you already, as a software engineer, like a lot of PMs are not technical, and that's why their partners, like they're more technical partners, their developers don't want to communicate with them. But you already have this leverage. So I would say when you go into interviews, make sure you highlight that. And then the second part is work on your people skills. And when I talk about working on your people skills, it's really hard to portray that on your resume or during your interviews. So you have to put yourself out there. Like you have to have a social presence. But make sure you tailor that social presence towards the goal of finding a PM job. So maybe post articles or like post, I don't know, updates on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or network with people and make sure that people know that you're networking with people. I know that part is a little tricky and it sounds very like, I don't know, it sounds very like clout chasey.
High level.
But that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do to build a reputation in the space, especially if you're a software engineer and people like there's this stereotype associated with like software engineers are people who are not willing to communicate, right? At least in the Silicon Valley, there's just the sentiment here. And I think it's important to realize that sentiment, even though it's wrong, because you have to like make sure you trump that. And like going into the interview, you have to hand them, hey, I'm technical, and hey, I have a social presence that's like within this vertical. If I work in autonomous driving, like I have a reputation here. I've talked to these people. So walk in with like just like solving their myths in the beginning would guarantee you an interview. So that's something that I would advise you to do. What do you think, Tech Rally?
I mean, that's kind of, you're the expert here because I'm technically not a PM either. But I was gonna ask you a follow-up question. So a software developer, they're also part of, I guess, agile process, right? Like, because the whole like sprints, retrospectives, all those things. Like, as a developer, like I do know those. I do know that we have to do those things, and like, and, like a PM is kind of like leading those meetings. But how do I then transition what I know from both technical skills, like I know agile process at a because I just do it on a bi-weekly basis. Like, what is that maybe that secret or that missing piece of I'm technically sound, I know what agile process is. Like, what am I missing that social proof at that point? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I'm not saying that missing social proof will definitely like block you from getting a PM role, but I think having some sort of social recognition
Got it.
would get you there faster. Yeah, for sure.
I see.
And also, like, maybe be prepared to answer the question, like, why do you want to become a PM? Because I have a very like real example here. My cousin was a backend developer at Airbnb, and then she wanted to become like some sort of management, like either engineering manager or PM manager. And when she went into like those interviews, the first question people ask is like, why do you want to switch to that role? And then she didn't like, I think at the time, like the first few interviews, like she had to think really hard about these questions because she's like, oh, like it seems like people around me are doing this and that's why I want to do it. And that's definitely not a good enough answer, right? But it's what a lot of people think because that's like almost like a career track. But if you don't word it correctly, it's just like, oh, other people are doing it, so I want to do it. So make sure you're prepared to answer that question too, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, Don said, yeah, that was my follow-up question. I got you, Don.
Nice,
but in some weird ways, I'm like, I didn't want to be a PM because sometimes, since I am so technical, if someone tells me, like an engineer tells me it's gonna take this long, I'm like, no, it's not. Like what do I do then? Am I supposed to call him out on it? Am I supposed to be like, hey, like, because I think I saw one of your videos about that, like one person who was just like very non-responsive, and I'm like, dude, what's going on, man? Like, you got to help me out here. But at the same time, I like knowing that that person is very capable of doing it. I'll just be like so frustrated, especially because I am so heavily technically sound now from a perspective of just like being able to call people out on it. Like, if anything, it's just I kind of like it when my PM just trusts me, because then I won't feel as then I don't want to like take advantage of that situation. But if an engineer is trying to do that, I'll just be like so frustrated as a PM and like, what are you supposed to do then, right?
Funny.
Do you raise it up with your boss?
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance because I think like Don, with your situation, like you have the advantage of like you can tell interviewers that you can estimate some sort of like timeline more accurately than other PMs who are not as technical because like how long actually like each like tiny little pieces take to complete the project. But then at the same time, you have to like build that trust between like yourself and the engineer, and you have to like watch out for their interests too. So it's important. Like I think I know this sounds really bad. Like I know people are like, oh, politics are bad. I hate politics, but like it's essential. You have to know how to like talk to people and protect like your colleagues' interests, but at the same time also protect like companies' interests. So it's a delicate balance. And if you find the correct balance in the center, like that's going to get your career to like a whole new level.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
So, I just saw L621 some comment.
No, that's gonna be a full sprint, 10 points. No, but I think one thing that I really like in super enjoying about this conversation is because I think, like I said, more often people think about just getting the job, just working it, but they don't think about kind of the other parts of it, right? And you kind of mentioned it with social capital about like who you know and like what you get exposed to. And I feel like I'm just getting a small hint of that at times. And like meeting people through my YouTube channel or meeting people through like the startups, like if you are part of a company that's relatively small and like maybe they'll like the CEO or someone will bring the engineer along to like one of these like type of discussions, because by the time you're like Series D or E, like the engineer doesn't really matter. Like you just contribute to whatever you need to do. But like being able to be part of that social circle, I feel like there's so many more benefits behind it. And I kind of watch a lot of like Gary Tan videos, and he talks about like, he talks about a lot about like equity more than just pay, right? And like financial pay, like it's good to be. There is a good part where you want to keep your like family, like a roof over their head. You want to get the insurance and all of these things, but ideally, to be somewhat successful, you want to try to grab equity. And I don't think that's discussed enough, even as software developers, because we're so focused on just like, oh, build, build, build. But there's this other aspect of like the social currency of like who you know and like trying to get that funding to get your ideas going. Like what are your thoughts about this like whole like social capital aspect?
I think social capital is something that's quite tabooed because people have different types of people have different unfair advantages to social capital. Like some people come from generational wealth, so then you're born with some level of social capital, right? And then there's people like us who are like, I don't know, we're from like a middle class, very, very like just middle class family where like there's not much like social capital around us, but like we get to make like other middle class friends who like, I don't know if like the five of us work together, we can actually build something that's going to help us to, I don't know, move up the socioeconomic ladder. So I think that is when social capital comes in really, really handy. It can also be constraining. Like if you make a bunch of friends at work, like make a bunch of networks at work, you're kind of like your thinking is constrained by this group of people, right? So some people say that like your personality is basically the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. Right. And if the thing that you're doing right now and the group of people you're hanging out right now is not matching what you want to do, like how you envision yourself in like 5 years, then this group of like, I don't know, this kind of social capital can actually constrain you from like moving on to the next level or like encouraging you to take more risks and do other stuff. So there's also that. But I do think if you want to move up the career ladder, whether it be like you're working for a large tech company or startup, building enough social capital in different areas. So it's like different bubbles of people and being able to like know what they do, being able to like build just like genuine connections with them, provide value to them when like time is right or when they need it. That goes a long way because it's not just like social capital is not just like transactional. It's not like I help you, you're going to help me in 20 years. It's more like, I help you. I also try to understand what you're doing. And maybe what you're doing is like slightly shifting my mentality towards the world. That is what's valuable. And I think that's what's like most like the stuff that I've gotten out of like my past year of like just like hardcore networking and talking to people and understanding like what they're all about. How do they like, what was their like childhood experience and how did it shape like their worldview and how are they operating in their like current world right now? So building social capital is not only just like, oh, maybe there's a fallback plan for me in the future because these people might be my friends, but it's also because like hanging out with different groups of people will help me understand and see the world in a different way. And that's something like that makes your life complex and that makes it a lot like juicier than just having like a laser focus on one thing.
Yeah, but you mentioned you were networking hard like crazy. In some regards, were you kind of pursuing it from a transactional way, or is that just there has to be some type of transactional mentality that you do have to have as genuine as you want to make it though?
Yeah, I see. I think in my like the beginning of my career, especially when I worked for banking, I was definitely approaching networking in a very, very transactional way. As in, I straight up go to people, I DM them on LinkedIn, and I'm like, hey, here's the value I can provide to you. Number 1, 2, 3. If you're working on side projects, I'll help you. If you need this help, I'll help you. If you need information, like I'll help you get it. I'll do research for you for free. And what I would like in return is you mentoring me. Like I send very, very blunt and direct messages back then. It got me somewhere. It like I don't think it's completely wrong to do that because then you filter out the people who are like not wanting to make these like direct relationships. If you're blunt about what you want out of the person can either say yes or no, right? And if the person says yes, then like that person, it's a very like bi-directional relationship then, even if it's like transactional. So that helped me in the beginning. But now I think I've shifted my mentality a little bit. And now I'm like, okay, I just want to like genuinely make friends and understand what everybody is doing because I'm in this phase of life where I'm trying to understand the world better. I try to understand like what people are working on and why they're working on it, because that is like really, really enriching like my brain. And yeah, what I actually experimented with in the past year is that I didn't tell people what I did. I'm just like, I'm derping around doing random stuff
Right.
and I just want to meet you. And there's still people who want to be friends with you and just like understand you as a person. And that was quite eye-opening for me. Like Jonathan in the group, who was in the chat, and then there's a bunch of like PMs who I hang out with now. We met each other, they didn't even know what I did, but like we still hung out, and now we're like
Right.
we're building this like really tight knit group that like I believe that if we ever wanted to do something together in the future, like we'll be pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. But I definitely approach this in a very different way. It's like I just want to make friends. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I think I have a rough, not a rough. I mean, I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, but I have a hard time kind of reaching out to new people or just kind of just talking to people, because sometimes it does feel transactional. I have my friends that aren't really in tech that I mostly hang out with, and then but at the same time, like how deeply invested do I want to be? Sometimes I do want to like meet those higher up people like in the Silicon Valley area, just to see, like, to your point, like see what they're thinking, hear their backstory, like understand it, like build that genuine relationship. But if I never reach out, then like how are you expecting to get those types of like introductions and all of that stuff? And I think sometimes I have a hard time reaching out and making those introductions, even though I am the one that gives advice to a bunch of aspiring developers to reach out to like recruiters and talk to them and just ask them to like for help and what value you could provide. It's a little tough for me because at the same time, I don't want to feel like I'm using them in some regards, and like trying to balance that out is like, yeah, I don't know what the best way to do it is. And like you're already busy with doing your own stuff as well, so I don't know. I'm just like thinking free
No,
thought at
I
this point.
totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like one of the like the major imposter syndrome stuff like that I suffered from in the beginning when I networked is that like I know that I'm just a rookie. Like I know I'm just like 2 years into my career and there's like absolutely no actual like meaningful value that I can provide to people. But even though like I offer them point 1, 2, 3, and like I know that these are like quite meaningless to them most of the time, just because like they can just tell their direct reports to do it, or they can just like tell people to do it. Somehow people are still willing to help you. And that's when I realized you don't actually have to directly give people value for them to like wanting to mentor you or get to know you. Like if you have a certain type of personality that they resonate with, or like you guys just like vibe well, I think people would still want to hang out with you. And also like I don't know, if we go one level deeper, I know we're at time here, but if you go like one level deeper, there are different things that makes a person feel fulfilled, right? There's like wealth, there's prestige, and then I think there's this word called fiero or something. It's like an Italian word. I read it from a book called Reality is Broken. Maybe that's the wrong word. I don't know. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but there's this sense of like exhilaration you get from being able to mentor people and help them overcome something difficult, but then also being able to own a piece of that experience. It's like you help this person succeed, and you feel fulfilled because of that. That's actually the second best feeling after like just pure like dopamine happiness, overcoming like a difficulty. Based on that book, this is I think what the author like she described in the book. So I try to like remind myself of that when I think about mentorship or like networking. It's like if you own a piece of my success, like yeah, like and you feel good about it, I think it's fine for me to reach out to you even if I don't directly provide any value to you at the moment.
That's so funny too.
That's
no, I mean that's so true, because I'm sure. I mean, Don and we kind of are in the same space of helping aspiring developers break into tech, and we do a lot of one-on-one coaching. And when I hear success stories, and when they message me saying like I got an interview or I got the job, it just makes me feel so like happy for them, right? Even if it was just one small piece of their like journey, just to be able to kind of guide them to that right path, it definitely feels rewarding, and you're rooting for them. Because before you just didn't even know who these people were, and then somehow they reached out to me, established a connection, and now I'm like here just hoping that they do well and whatnot. So definitely agree with you on that point. So maybe I will reach out. And I feel that at least because of my YouTube channel, it's been really helpful to me meeting new people, and people have reached out to me that have like significantly more TikTok followers or YouTube subscribers and all of this stuff. And I think there is an aspect of building genuine relationships. So if you kind of approach it the right way, I mean, it can still be transactional, but at the same time, I think people can see through your social media of some sort, like what kind of person you are, right? And I think that to your point, like blogging, Twitter, all of this stuff is like really important as well.
Yeah, I think it's more important than ever to have a social presence.
Yeah.
You don't get like at one point in your career you'll realize that you don't get enough voice at work than your coworkers, and oftentimes it's because either they have like very very just like personal connections with people, or they have a larger social presence. So I think that's also something to consider when people are going into like tech career. But then obviously like pay attention of like how do you want to portray yourself on social, because I know people also get in trouble for like posting on Twitter and having 50K followers. So there's
Is
also
that common? Like people actually get in trouble for what they
I think
like
I just saw a tweet of somebody who, yeah, I think it's getting more like companies are more larger tech companies are more strict about people posting in the name of, oh, I work for blah, blah, blah company. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe be careful of that. But having a social presence and like at least have a voice in amongst a group of people who are willing to like grow with you and follow your path, like that not only like that builds social capital for you, it's just like it feels good. It feels like a community, right? You guys are like growing together.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I really think it has to be genuine. And that's why networking is so important. And pre-COVID, when there were like meetups, physical meetups that you can meet other people and like share your projects, or I know you reached out to me for SF stuff. Like it's so organic in some regards, and I obviously wish I could just be at two places at once and just all like hang out and see what other like content creators are up to. But in some regards, that without purely thinking like this is transactional or I need to grow my social capital, it's just building organic relationships that could be beneficial on both ends. So I think from that perspective it makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a question here actually. Do you think management skills from non-tech do you think management skills from non-tech sectors are transferable? I've been in many management positions, but I'm having a hard time trying to relate those skills to a tech resume.
I see. So I was in a management position in banking before I moved to tech. I had thought that management skills are transferable. It didn't really transfer for me, at least the first year in tech, because like there's like we talked about this, there's this sentiment in tech where like technical people are like, there's this some sort of chain where like technical people are up here and the non-technical people are maybe like lower, because like technical people are driving the companies in the Silicon Valley, right? But this year I realized, okay, like the stuff that I did to manage people in the past, maybe I didn't directly apply all of that to work like 2 years ago, but now I realize, oh, like being able to just research people and study people, understand their interests and align people's interests, like all that, I don't know, like maybe we call it office politics, but like all that useful stuff, that's transferable to the tech world. It's just like, it's not going to show in the beginning. You just have to like keep on doing it, because management skills, like, I don't know, ultimately is just like being able to understand what everyone's interest is and what the company's interest is, being able to view people's identities and how it's tied to like a specific entity, right? And then how like the people are working towards their different goals. Like, it's just like understanding what people are all about. That is still very much like transferable.
Yeah. But like, do you think it's hard to get an interview, or do you think it's hard to actually get the position because during the interview someone might think like, oh, well, this person's not very tech savvy, maybe this person doesn't know agile? I don't know. I feel like where is that blocker generally? Do you notice? Is it the
Where's
resume
that blocker? Transferring? Wait, are you talking about blocker as in like transferring management skills from non-tech to tech?
Do you think it happens more often like the resume, the initial aspects, or do you think
like in the interview journey, job hunting journey? Let me think. I think it with resume, it stops at resume.
Stuff's probably
like at least my experience is it stops at resume unless you have side projects. So I had side projects at the time, and that's why I think I got an interview.
Like what kind of side projects?
I ran a career consultation company, but that did not last long.
Hey, I mean, it got your foot in the door though, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like one of the reasons I wanted to move to the Silicon Valley is that like that company failed like pretty miserably, because I absolutely did not know how to like manage people as like the one management person in the company. It's just very different from like being a manager at like a larger company that like
Right.
you can use their bureaucracy and their systems to like make things work in your favor, versus
Mhm.
like running your own company, you have to align interests to make sure you're protecting everybody's interests. So there's that. But that experience got me into tech because we were like, okay, maybe she's like comfortable navigating like ambiguity, and maybe she's comfortable with doing like hands-on stuff. So
Yeah, it's a tough one because it kind of goes back to that whole even from developers, if you don't have any work experience, it's really hard to get hired. But how am I supposed to get work
mhm.
experience if you're not willing to take a chance on me, kind of
Yeah.
thing? So I feel that you need some type of networking too, and maybe I heard that 80% of the jobs that are like taken are through networking and not necessarily through
Mhm.
these like cold resume applications, and that's pretty kind
It's
of it's
funny
crazy
though.
to think about. Yeah,
Most of my interviews I've gotten is actually just from cold application. Like,
really.
but that was okay. That was 3 years ago. So I don't know if that's still like applicable to the job hunting world today. But
Mm.
I applied to every single job
Mm.
that was available on LinkedIn and Glassdoor.
Yeah. But okay, so I think maybe you're kind of not underselling yourself because you just say you apply to every single job, but I think there's a bit of like a hustleness in you that wants to like
There was
achieve
yeah,
every need. Like you know what I mean?
there was a lot of hustleness that
Yeah.
I probably no longer have. But at the time, job hunting was definitely, I treated it as a project. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, today, 500 applications, tomorrow, 20 networking calls. Like, I have to do all of this. I have to hit the numbers in order to like get one person who will have some like dumb faith in me that will help me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe you might not. Maybe you kind of slowed it down because you're trying to take care of yourself a little bit. But at that time, maybe that's what you needed to actually get to that point,
Mhm.
right? And I think sometimes even like people that are trying to get into tech, they don't put in. They think they're putting in a lot of work, but they're not actually going above and beyond. Like I would
Mm.
say, there are a bunch of exorbitant amounts of junior developers that coding boot camps are just churning out. And if they're
Mm.
all kind of equally the same level, then what are you doing to get to stand out? And I think watching some of your content, I realized that you're very like organized, but at the same time, there's a lot of things on your plate, but you still get it done. So, if anybody can get something out of this, it's just like plan, but actually execute. Because if you don't execute, then it's just gonna just sit there and not do anything, right? I don't think people plan or execute, and that's the biggest problem. They just want something like
Oh.
spoon fed. Yeah.
Mhm. Why do you think that is? Like, I know people, like, obviously people want jobs really badly. Like, it
Hmm.
pays for like their lives, but why
Yeah.
aren't people like going above and beyond? I've always been like curious. Is this more like a mental blockage, or is there like just lack of like mentorship in the field?
I think it's a bit of lack of mentorship and just
Mhm.
traditional education in some regards, right? Or like traditional path to getting a job. You
Mhm.
graduate from college, you set up your resume, you apply online, and hopefully someone responds back. I think a lot of people are still in that mindset, but
Mhm.
people aren't realizing the benefits of like social capital, networking, having a presence. Like all of these little things are ways for you to just get your foot in the door, maybe even cut in line. Like someone like Chris Sean, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like a YouTuber, software developer, DevRel, but
Mhm.
he literally quit his job and just posted on Twitter saying, "I quit my job. I'm looking for another job." And then like so many people reached out to him, right? And it's just kind of
Mhm.
crazy to think that, but not everybody can be in that position, right? Like not everyone has that social presence. But if you're able to even just get like 10% of that, like why not try it out, right? So I think people, there's a little bit of like either introvertedness or not knowing, just hoping that just it'll work out kind of thing, be it based on me following like a traditional way of doing things will like get me there. But what I found that people like as I've gotten older, what I've seen like successful people do is they just know a lot of people. And because you know a lot of people, you could
Mhm.
get more connections, get more your foot in the door. Like I know that if I like for whatever reason left Amazon, like I could reach out to like 5 or 6 developers and be like, hey, like are you guys hiring? Or hey, is there like a DevRel position open? Or hey, is there any, like I just keep reaching out, and I know that I could at least get an interview because I have content that's already like out there that says that I'm a software developer. My LinkedIn is like
Mhm.
pretty optimized at this point. The like I got the name recognition, I guess, now with with Fang, like all these things are just kind of social proof that I am a software developer. And it's super important because as funny as it sounds, like I tell a lot of like aspiring developers, you need like a portfolio, you need a website, everything. Like I don't have any of those things, but I don't technically need those things anymore because I don't need to get my foot in the door, right? So
very cool, very cool. Take note, whoever's watching right now, because
I
I
know.
think building a social presence or like some sort of like reputation in the field is as important as building your portfolio. Because like
I
you
think so
build your
too,
portfolio and nobody looks at it, like you don't have reach. That like really sucks.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point, right? Like how do you
How do you
like
get people to
develop?
even look at your project?
Right.
Yeah.
Man, maybe and you could create some kind of service to like. Actually, I'm sure that already exists, like a tweet or a cameo style.
Nice.
When you say boot camps are churning out junior devs, what are you doing to stand out and go above and beyond? Do you think a person with a degree is separated from this crowd? I think having a degree is gonna help, and it's only beneficial. Like it's unfortunately we still live in a world where like the degree matters a lot, and like I don't want to downplay like a computer science degree because it is a lot of work, but the reason why you need those portfolios, the reason why you need like all of these like extra things if you don't have a degree and you're kind of coming out of like a boot camp is because you don't have that validation. Like in some ways, what I just described before with like the whole LinkedIn and like my job and everything like that, that is like my social proof or validation that I am a software developer. And to a lot of employers these days, the computer science is kind of like the equivalent. So you need to figure out another way to like show that you are a software developer. Hey, that's a good question.
I keep getting this question.
Should we just skip it? We'll skip it.
Joseph, I ordered this shirt online somewhere. I don't remember where, but I am planning on making a bulk order sometime soon. I do also see Coding After Party in the chat. I stand. I think I watched both of you's in like a pod.
Oh, Coding After Dirty? Yeah, he's
I
a
really
funny
like
dude.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually not 30. He's 40. I'm just kidding.
Oh, good to know. Good to
know. he always gets mad because I always bring that up. What does it say? So make a social media bot that scrapes profiles and links your work to people. Hey, if that works.
That is actually quite helpful. No? Like I'm pretty sure LinkedIn has a team building this right now. No?
No, that's so funny. But hey, do you have any questions for me, or like, is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Because the floor is yours.
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a solo now while I turn on the air conditioner.
No. I've always been curious. Like maybe one last topic about like how you want to like approach the burnout topic. I know that like you doing a full-time job, but then also running like basically a full-time like content channel. That's a lot of work. How do you manage that? Do you feel burnout? Like, how do you balance the two?
Oh, 100%. I feel burnt out. When I was doing the 2 videos per week thing, but what was nice about that one was like, I think there was like a goal that I had of hitting monetization. And it was like very clear what that goal was, because you have to hit 4,000 hours. You have to hit 1,000 followers or whatever. So once I hit that, it was like, oh, cool. Like I could finally like rest and take a break. But now, I don't know. It's tough. I'm trying to figure out what the best way to optimize this YouTube channel and like how do I spend my time wisely. I feel like I'm in like this weird rut, to be honest, and I've been just watching a lot of like Netflix and just relaxing, right? So I gotta probably do a little bit of like a what do you call? I don't know, what do people call it, like a vision board or something to figure out like how do I achieve my goals, right? And at first this was just a YouTube channel that I made because I was afraid to like talk in front of a camera, and here I am like going live, networking with people, like talking to you. It's just crazy how things keep evolving, and I have no like desire to ever like leave the space, but what I want to do for that next step is still kind of up in the air. I've been doing a lot of like one-on-one coaching, so that's been taking up a good amount of my time. But yeah, like time is so valuable that it sucks how like you just can never get it back, and it's something I think about a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like there's a lot of like, okay, so I've been quite interested in like the creator but like education tech space So
Hmm.
I watch a lot of YouTubers. Like I watch Gary Tan, I watch like Joma Tech Lead, the Mayuko, and then
Hmm.
Tiffany, who codes, I think. So I watch a lot of that, and I realize that what people do is people typically usually have a full-time job. And then people also like try to like educate people online and bring in like either like absolutely just like free information for people or create their own side hustles and like
Hmm.
maybe generate extra source of income that way. I kept wondering like how do people do that, and how do you like let these different projects you work on or like different companies you work for or work at like define your own identity? Do you ever get confused? Does that like cause burnout, or is it more just like the constant grind that you like there's a posting schedule? Like I know YouTube incentivizes you to post
Hmm.
consistently. Like there's all that you have to think about. And I know with like I don't there it's a buzzword now, but like with creator economy we're
Hmm.
going I don't know to the moon. Is that what people are saying now? um, like how is there a chance for people who want to create more content to just full-time do that, or is that something that like you're just never going to consider?
I think that's something I would consider, but at this point, it's just not quite there yet. And for me
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, and also I think it's also because like I'm genuinely at heart still a engineer, and I really like coding. I really like solving things, and eventually, if I come to a point where I'm like, as much as I enjoy this, I see so much more value behind this other passion that I have, which is like helping aspiring developers like break into tech. And if I could figure out a way to like either monetize it in a way that I'm happy with what I'm making, and it may not be like the Fang type of money, but like as long as I'm happy with it and it's growing, then yeah, that's something I'll consider in the future. But it's so hard right now because especially like with someone like Mayuko and Joma Tech, and they kind of hit it earlier in the YouTube
Mm-hmm.
world, and they've kind of already have that huge following already. That at this point, like it could be self sustaining. But I'm curious because like I think Joma Tech still works full time, which is interesting. And I know Mayuka is like a full time streamer, but she also has her husband, I think, that works too. So it's one of those things where it's like money versus like what maybe your actual passion that
Mm-hmm.
can be conflicting at times. But I don't know. It's something. That's why I think about like potential, like even like course creation. Something that's
Mm-hmm.
more like scalable to what my actual goal is, rather than doing these like one-on-one coaching sessions. And I think I told you this like offline too, but like generally my like one-on-one coaching sessions aren't for me to like make money or go to the moon or anything like that. It's just like so many people reach out now that it's like so overwhelming. Like I don't have time to do like one-on-one coaching, so I generally try to lead them to my Discord, or like just have this little paywall to say like, hey, if you really want to talk to
Mm-hmm.
me, then here's like just pay $50 and I'll just talk to you for as long as I want. So yeah, it's
I think
tough.
that makes a lot of sense because like it basically creates a barrier for people who are not like super serious
Hmm.
about like having getting consultation from you. So I think that
Yeah,
makes sense. I was just like really curious about like what are the things like maybe you can offer in a more sustainable way, like so that
I
you
think
don't like
about that a
work
lot
yourself to
actually.
death. Yeah.
And it's crazy because the reality is like at my current job, at moments it does take up a lot of my time, and that's kind of
Mhm.
maybe why, in some weird way, like achieving that goal has kind of hurt me in my YouTube journey too of
Mm.
monetization, because now I feel that I don't know what that next goal is, at least from a YouTube perspective. But now I'm probably gonna have to just do some thinking about just what the brand Tech Rally is supposed to do, outside of just YouTube, or maybe even within YouTube, and think about like everything like that. Yeah.
You have some fans who's commenting
Oh shoot. Let's see
in
which one.
chat.
Which one should we address? Yeah, it's the Serena live stream now. So like, well, maybe we'll give her a solo layout
Oh,
for
let's
now.
not. I'll take over. Start selling my blue t-shirt.
You gotta link it out right now. No, I'll give you that. I'll save you from the solo layout. Let's see. Tech rally. Oh, Chris Sean's in the house. Let's do it. Hey, I was just talking about you, how you're able to get a job off Twitter.
That's nice. That's the
Yeah,
ultimate dream.
that's the ultimate flex, actually. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. You do a great job. Just niche it down and do less to get more. Yeah, for sure. If you could do content creation full time, you could have energy again to live code. That's true too.
You
Yeah.
used to live code?
I used to,
That's
but
super cool.
I don't know. It's also because I'm not like building anything. Yeah, like in the builders economy, I'm not building anything. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking about like doing some like type of side crypto project thing, but that never panned out.
Why is that? Why is that? Is it just like you're
I didn't have a
like
PM,
dedicating
you
your
know,
time
like
to
I didn't have a
it?
good PM to manage my work. It was
To
just
micromanage
I,
you?
I I tried starting my own side application, all that stuff, but it's so hard to do it because first you need like a team. You can't just do everything by yourself. I know. I think there's this
Mhm.
cockiness of developers to be like, I could do everything. Like I don't need marketing. I don't need anything. Like you need all of those things, and trying to start from scratch is so hard. Yeah. So
I see.
I learned. I actually maybe 2 years ago try to like build this like social like Facebook competitor through built on Ethereum and all of these things. And it was kind of working, but at the same time, it was so buggy and I didn't really have a good marketing because I don't know how to market. And I didn't have anything related to like how do I actually like monetize this and like how do I sustain my servers? Like I'm not good at backend, so obviously I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So yeah, it's all I realized that if I ever do start building something or want to build something, I want to make sure I have like a solid team around me, at least like two more developers that actually care about your project. Because I've worked with
Mhm.
other developers too, and I realize everyone wants to kind of just do their own thing. So it's so hard to have
Very,
people
very
align.
interesting. Very interesting. I do see a lot of that with like
Yeah.
at least like full stack developers. They usually just prefer doing their own thing, and
Hmm.
sometimes if they have a social presence, then they launch their own thing. So it's just
Yeah.
like a one person team.
it's
That's just like
it's
you're
it's
a
possible
superpower.
because like man, when you're working in a team, sometimes you get so disappointed. It only takes one person to just kind of ruin the momentum. And
Uh,
especially it sucks because like I'm doing like all the front end stuff and I'm moving forward, and then the back end developer is just like starts not getting interested in it for some reason. But even though you agree that you're gonna work on it together, and it's just like,
mhm.
god damn, like because you're not getting paid for this, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you need to go in all in on it, and then trying to actually start it. It just takes so much effort, and like I don't know. It's hard to call them out on it at times, and at that point you're like, man, I'd rather just do it by myself. And yeah,
Mm. I see.
yeah.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. It seems like your chat is taking you to a different direction, though.
I
Everybody's
know,
like,
like I think they really want
launch
me
a
to
Tech
start
Rally coin.
the graphic, the TR coin. You need to go up like, hey, actually, that's so funny because I
TR
think that
sounds legit. Like
TR
TR sounds like a real thing.
TR coin, yeah, I know exactly. Actually, that's so funny because I know Tech Lead started some like
Hmm.
million coin or whatever, and it's I think it's been blowing up, but yeah. But no, these are really good questions. I mean, I never think about. Oh, I do think about it, but it's so funny that people can already identify like, oh, like where are you going with this channel? Like, what direction do you want to go? And
Hmm.
I want to actually meet a lot more like content creators. Hopefully, I think that's well. Hopefully this year when like people can like physically meet up, I want to see how they grow their channel and how they optimize it. And like now that I'm sure you see this on your own TikTok, but now I'm like looking at the analytics and I'm just like, oh my god, like this is probably these videos are doing better than this video. I'm like, oh, like am I getting swayed by my analytics or am I getting swayed by whatever I want to do? And it's like sometimes like it's a tough
Mm.
battle. Yeah.
That's quite an existential question to ask yourself. It's like between passion and making this into something that's an actual side hustle, like what do
Yeah.
you choose? What do you prioritize?
Yeah,
But
for
yeah.
sure.
I feel
So
like it's a question that like not no like none of the creators can actually answer. Cause like you usually start out because it's a fun thing to do, but then like
yeah, I mean like
yeah.
as a content creator yourself, like well, how do you come up with your ideas? Is it just kind of on a whim? Like do you like
Mhm.
have like a vision, like a not a vision board, but just like a notion of just like, okay, I have to make one video per week. Doesn't matter what it is, but I'm just gonna make it.
But yeah.
How do you decide that?
How do I decide that?
Yeah. Do you
I
even
mean,
like think about your
I haven't
wardrobe
been
or is it
posting a
the
lot.
same?
I haven't even been posting a lot on YouTube, but like with TikTok videos, I kind of just like I think I'm in this like more free flowing zone right now where I can just like I just have a lot of creativity right now
Hmm.
because I'm not working. Like I'm not working a 9 to 5 job right now. And I watch
Yeah.
like TikToks and I watch I don't know like YouTube videos and I think the best work first comes from mimicry And TikTok is the best platform for that because it actually incentivizes you to like mimic something and then add your own taste to it. So that's where I started. And I feel like it's really working in my favor right now. But obviously, like in the future, I can't just like do this forever. So in the future, I feel like creativity, we will run out of creativity. And that's when like probably the real grind comes in. I'm not quite there yet.
Interesting. So do you feel like you taking this time off, it's giving you more of this creative flow of being able to just come up with a lot of ideas? Because I think that's probably where I'm stuck at now, to your original question about like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just so busy with work and whatever little time I have, I just feel like I'm just kind of checking off a box of like, make content, but I don't really know if it's like leading to anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I quit my last job is that like I could feel creativity flowing in, and I'm like, okay, my head is exploding with like a bunch of information, and I just need to like really focus on this like energy that like doesn't come that easily. And obviously like it was also during COVID. So I'm like, okay, everybody's literally sitting at home looking at social media platforms right now. Like if I don't do it now, I won't get a chance to like have that boost in the future. And that's when I decided to quit my job. But I feel like the most, I don't know, successful as in like having the most following and being able to like monetize and have a sophisticated like business model around your creativity. These type of people, they focus more on execution than like letting creativity drive their post schedules. And I think I very much admire that. I've always believed that the people who recognize boring work but are still willing to do it and follow a schedule, like are disciplined to do that, like these are the people that like really stand out to me.
Yeah, I think that's probably how I follow. I don't think I'm very creative. I just have a schedule and I just do it. But then,
yeah, like I think that's completely fine. I think that works in your favor.
It does, but sometimes you don't know what the ceiling is, or like you don't know how far you can actually go, because you're only like, for me, I hate. I say that carefully, but I hate when people say like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this thing," and then they haven't done any of the small steps to get there. So I'm like the type not to like say those things, but I realize, at least with myself, that I kind of put limiters on myself of what's possible. Maybe that's like an engineering thing, because like I know it's possible that I could hit this, so I could hit all these like small goals to get there. But sometimes I don't think about the higher level or the big picture, because maybe it feels so unattainable that you're just kind of like, oh shit, this is gonna be a lot of work involved, and I don't know if I really want to commit to this. So that it's a battle that I struggle with sometimes.
I see. I'm sure like a lot of people struggle with this though.
That's probably true. I mean, do you think you would ever do like content creation like full time though? Like
full time? Probably not right now. Like why I asked was that I could feel that in the past year, since I haven't really worked like the 9 to 5 and like tied my like own, I don't know, like identity to a certain entity that was like larger than me, had a mission or a vision that's like larger than just like my life mission. I kind of lost context. Like, so I would create stuff still about like the tech space, but then I realized that like it doesn't just come to me anymore. Like the work stuff, it doesn't come to me anymore. If I were to host like a serious meeting tomorrow, like I actually have to like prepare for that. I actually can't just like hop on the laptop and like start talking to people in a more like professional way anymore. So I'm like, perhaps like I need to like maybe pick that back up.
Got it.
But yeah.
Got it. That's interesting.
So I'd rather, I think I'd rather work and be able to create content and just give out free information to people for now. But in the future, I don't know. Who knows? We're all exploring.
I mean, you are like you're kind of practicing what you're preaching too, because I would say a lot of your brand, I think that Serena Li here is like pretty everywhere, right? Like Twitter, TikTok,
I try.
YouTube.
I try because I think people started like taking my handle on other platforms. So I'm like, so now every time like there's a new platform, I just try to like get that username.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually a good point, because I realized Alex Lee was taking like pretty much everywhere, and at this point, I'm so late in the game that I had to like choose a random brand name called Tech Rally. But man, I don't know if I made a good choice.
Like it's like
I appreciate it.
TR.
Yeah, keeping it nice and simple. All right. Well, we got one last question here. It's a really important one. Do you prefer TikTok over YouTube?
Is that a question for Tech Rally or for me?
I think that's probably for you because I don't really
I guess,
have
yeah,
one.
I guess I can answer. Yeah. I prefer TikTok for now just because I can quickly understand, like I can quickly get feedback from my audience versus YouTube. I have to record and then maybe edit and then post, and then get feedback. And it may or may not even surface in front of like people, right? Versus TikTok, at least the For You page is still like pushing out your content as long as you have a certain niche and the algorithm identifies with that. So that's what I'm trying to get. I just like want really fast feedback, to tell me whether the stuff that I'm posting or the stuff that I'm talking about is working or not. I do want to do YouTube. I actually plan to go back to posting weekly YouTube videos starting from September. So we'll see about that. I don't know if I can like actually keep my words, but we'll see. The funny thing though, like for anybody who's a content creator out there, is that TikTok has been generating leads for my YouTube. As in, like, I see my YouTube followers growing and watch hours growing, even though like I haven't been posting since like 6 months ago. But I think all these audiences are coming from TikTok. So that's, if that's helpful. There's that. Tech Rally, are you
Do you need
staying on
dancing
YouTube
skills?
forever?
Huh?
No, no.
How does a non-dancer get famous on TikTok?
No, I think TikTok loves skits. Like if you're
Mm,
able to provide very like just like very well crafted memes, is that even a thing? Like terribly well crafted memes,
mhm.
or stories to your audience. I think that actually performs better than dances.
Makes sense. Wait, what were you asking before?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, is YouTube home for you, or are you exploring like other platforms?
Yeah, I think YouTube is home for me. I mean, I think it's more about the same conversation about time. And
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have enough time to do that other avenue of like short 10-second, 15-second. It actually takes a lot of time. I tried doing it and then you have to go back and I'm not familiar with. I sound like a boomer in some ways, but I'm just like I don't know how to edit the TikTok like UI feature. I'm just like, oh god, this is a
It's
lot
not
of
you,
work.
it's them. It's not
It,
you, it's them. Like they, yeah, the feature can be better.
yeah, so it's maybe I'm just sticking with what I know right now. I'm thinking about Twitch if I ever want to do like live streaming, but
Mm-hmm.
like sorry, live streaming with coding. So like live
Mm-hmm.
coding, potentially I'll do that on Twitch. I know Don told me about that, like how he does like both in some regards. But I think and my main priority was YouTube because I wanted to hit like monetization, and I feel like most of my audience is coming from here. I tried Instagram, but Instagram's like slowly becoming less about picture sharing and it's more about
Mm-hmm.
like reels. So maybe
Reels.
that'll be
So
something
basically
that
TikTok.
yes, yes, exactly. So, but I could at least like clip out my videos and put it into Instagram. We'll see. I don't know,
Mm,
but yeah.
yeah.
Boomer Alex. Yeah.
Change
I
the
knew someone was
channel.
gonna make a comment about that.
I
But it's
think
so true.
coding after 30 just wants to emphasize that he has a TikTok and he's not a
Yes,
boomer.
and he has a dance TikTok channel and it's very
Very cool, very
private.
cool. Very forward thinking.
All of these people want to have a dancing duet with me. I guess I
Do
might have
it.
to create a TikTok account one day. We'll see. Maybe I'll take some lessons beforehand. But anyways, this was really good chatting with you. Do you have any like last minute like words of wisdom or like you want to share with us? How to survive in tech,
Um
or what do you anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, honestly, like I've been pretty lost in my like career journey. I know I hustle a lot in the past. I think what I came to realization is that like there's no one career path, and there's a lot of people who are chasing after things, chasing after very solid milestones, and they're in that zone, right? I very much admire people who are in that zone. And there are people who are thinking, I don't know, more existentially, or like thinking more about like the meta stuff that's happening. And you can feel kind of lost at times, and you're like, oh, why are we doing this if everybody's doing the same thing? Like, how do I be different? What is the meaning of life? How do I like partake that? Um, there's no one way to like do stuff for your career. Like you may think you're in the right field right now, but I don't know, 10 years down the road it might change. So it's all okay. Like if you're in a shithole right now, it's all okay. And if you are in that zone, like grasp onto that, like hold on to that, and you really use that momentum. So that's how I feel about career in general. There's like no one way to do it, and like I don't have like, I don't know, practical tactical tips for anybody. Just like live your life however you want it.
That's true. I think sometimes we think this like career is gonna keep change our lives for the better and we'll be fine for the next 40, 50 years. But personally for me, I don't put my career like on a pedestal. I love building more like genuine relationships, and that's why even at my current job, and I'm hopefully I don't get fired for this, but I don't really like think I don't think about climbing up this like career ladder and just becoming this like amazing Amazon developer. What I like about my job is that I'm around smart people and I build good relationships and I move up the ladder if I do well, right? And if I don't, that's okay. But I think that maybe it's because I have like a YouTube channel and I have other like genuine relationships that there are other things that make me happy. And I think sometimes I just work where I like try not to get fired. I think that's like my mentality as opposed to like
I think you're underselling yourself. Like, is that just like a common thing amongst?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's just like I think I just try to do enough. Yeah, and then I find a lot of like fun doing other things, and maybe that's why I'm able to balance out my time so well. Is because I know the type of work that I'm able to contribute then, but there's just so many other things like outside of work that you can also like achieve. So, but no, that's a really great point. And yeah, you just never know what's gonna happen in the next 10 years. So just keep just figuring it out.
For sure.
I think that's the
like,
word advice.
Yeah, especially like after coaching so many like students or mentors, you realize that like you can't just tell people to do things and tell them, hey, if you do thing 1, 2, 3, and you'll be completely happy and you'll achieve like what you will always want, like what you've always wanted to achieve. Like it's just that's not true. So I came to the realization that like I just like do whatever you're working on right now. Like really just enjoy the momentum.
Yeah, I think you got to enjoy the ride. And like, don't get me wrong, I really like what I'm doing, and like I like the department that I'm in and all the new things I'm learning. But even for my one-on-one coaching, I say, hey, this is my perspective, but you should just do what's comfortable for you. Because if you're not comfortable doing this type of networking, then try some other various ways to network. Like you don't have to like use this way, but I believe that this is the best way. But if you feel like you have a better way of doing it, whether it's through like email or whatever, you just never send the Bitcoin. Who knows? Like we'll see what happens, right? Like how do you get someone's attention? It's gonna be it's very interesting, and like I'm always open to like some unorthodox strategies as well. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Of course.
I can't believe this is like our first conversation. It's just, like it was so like so fun. So smooth.
So, yeah, I love these types of conversations because like I don't know, sometimes you already know a person too well, so you don't ask those type of questions that you already know the answers to. So it was good to get to know you as well and have 25 people watching it.
Yay! Hi friends.
Cool. Oh, so last thing, if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it?
I'm on Twitter, probably the most now. Yeah, Twitter or let's say email. So Twitter.
Okay, cool. I'll add that in the description below. And that's an interesting question. How much does money drive your career decision? Last question.
This is a good question.
Not that much.
Wanna go first? Okay.
Yeah, not that much for me. I mean, money's great, and I think you could always make more, but at the same time, I don't know. It's tough because living in New York City, it's exposed me to so much like wealth, not wealth personally, but wealth other people have. I'm like, how the hell do people live in like a $15,000 a month apartment? It's just like, it makes no sense to me. And I'm like, you have to be making at least like $700,000 a year to be able to do that. And it's just like, oh, I guess it's good to see like what's possible, but at the same time, I realize like I haven't really changed my like lifestyle or like how I live for the past like 3 years, even though my salary has been going up. So not too much. I'm pretty like content with what I make, and like even I was content with what I was making like 2-3 years ago. So I just like the challenge, I think, personally. What about you?
Cool. That's good to know. Yeah. For me, I think I've always had a pretty unhealthy relationship with money. And I tell all of my friends that they know. Somewhere like during my college time, I really needed money for a while. So I actually like got the banking job because of that. That's when I got my first taste of, money can do some really cool shit. Like money can get you out of really, really bad situations. And then I really focused on making money for a while. And then now I think I just made like a 180, and now I actually have trouble like asking people for money. Like with the content that I'm pushing out, or with like the stuff that I'm like information that I'm giving out, the mentorship that I'm giving out, I'm not charging anything. I think it's because I now have an unhealthy relationship with money, and now I feel like it's like asking people for money is basically like eliminating your opportunities or your options to ask people of like anything else. For example, attention. For example, they follow you to do something else. So I don't have a good answer for you. Oh, Omar, hi. I don't have a good answer for you, but um, it I'm exploring. So if there's anything
Mm.
that changes, I'll come back and we'll talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, we need to have you on again. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like money does make life comfortable. Let's just say that. And if the more you have it, the more comfortable it is. And that's kind of like the reality. But yeah, I know it's a tough spot, because I think even personally for me, like when I see those people making exorbitant amounts of money, I'm like, wow, I want to be there too. But it's like, does it really matter to me? And I think if anything, you're probably like kind of showing that it doesn't really have that much drive for you, because you quit your job to figure things out, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it takes a lot of resilience, and just drowning out some noise that maybe you have. At least me, my Asian parents, like they could always give you a hard time for not working and all of these things. So just being able to just make that decision and being comfortable with it and just figuring it out, it's like another pretty commendable thing. So like
Yeah,
kudos
for
to you.
sure, for sure.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We're like an hour and 40 minutes in, but thank you again, Serena, for coming on. This was super fun. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah,
Adios.
thanks, Tech Rally. Thanks for having me. Nice meeting y'all in the chat.
Yeah.
Bye.